Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about something that has come up quite often, and that is planning a marriage date for people. How do I do that? What's the most important thing to look for when planning the marriage date for people? So before I begin with this subject, let me remind everyone to sign up for my free newsletter where you can have all of my predictions delivered personally to your email address. And while you're on the site, please check out my line of spiritual jewelry, such as this one's the Cycles of the Moon. So this jewelry is to remind us of our spiritual purpose while we are here on Earth. So go to my website, sign up for the free newsletter, and check out the jewelry, which is galacticcenter.org. And don't forget, if you want to learn Vedic astrology, check out my online university, which is University of Vedic Astrology.com. So how do I plan a marriage date? You have to look at the individual's charts that are getting married, plus looking at the day in terms of its auspiciousness. Auspicious means good, so it's goodness for that individual and how beneficial the planets are placed from one another on that day. So one of the things I always look at, first of all, is I'm always going to be looking at Venus, because Venus is the planet that rules love, romance, and marriage. And it's said that in a man's chart, Venus rules the wife. But usually I'm looking at the woman's chart to plan a wedding. That's more significant, but it will always reflect in the man's chart as well. Because generally you're looking at two people that are attracted and are brought together. Therefore, their charts are going to be interrelated always when there is a strong, passionate connection between two people. So the most important thing I think that changes throughout the day or through the days is the moon. So I want to see that the moon is placed in a good sign, a good nakshatra. Remember, I talk a lot about the 27 nakshatras. This is almost like Pachanga, which deals with all these versions of how the moon is placed. So Pachanga is a system of all these different effects daily. So we're not going to get into the 5 Pachanga variables, but I'm going to point out the ones that are the most important. And I always look at what I call the nakshatra, and also you can glance at the tithi. There are 30 tithis really to the moon, and they are actually kind of like phases of the moon. But that's not as important as where the moon is by sign. And I just wanted to bring out one thing while I'm here, is this is a book where the last chapter in this book, I give how I choose special dates for everything in the life. So this is called Moon, Mind, and Consciousness, and it's everything about the moon in a chart. But going back to planning the day, so you want to have Venus in a good place in the chart. You want to have the moon always being aspected by benefics. You do not want to choose a marriage date when you have malefics such as Mars. Malefic means very difficult. Mars, Saturn, Rahu, or Ketu aspecting the moon. Avoid those days. But then again, you want to look at the bride's chart. What is going on in the bride's chart? If you see Venus being in the first house, that's superior, because Venus in the first house means it's casting its energy and light to the 7th house of marriage. The issue is Venus in the 7th house is way too much. You want Venus in the first. So depending on what the bride's ascendant is, it's really nice to have Venus in that first house. So on top of that, is Venus transiting Venus in the sky? Is it aspecting in a positive way the bride's personal planets? Yes, you have to find that. Plus, is transiting Jupiter aspecting the 7th house of marriage? That will bring great things to the marriage. And they say in Vedic astrology, you should have both Jupiter and Saturn aspecting the marriage house. If you have both of those, that's a point of manifestation. Don't forget, Saturn brings stability and focus and structure to anything. Jupiter gives opportunities. So together they manifest goodness when both those planets are aspecting the 7th house. So you want to have both Jupiter and Saturn and Venus aspecting the 7th house. And really, the aspect for Venus is the opposition. So have it in the 1st house. Then if you can align up, which is hard to get all those variables together, but the best to your ability, look to where the moon is. If the moon is being aspected by Jupiter or Venus, I particularly, either one, but Venus, remember, rules marriage and relationships, then that's tops. That's going to be the best. And remember, around the time right before the full moon is where everything comes to light. The full moon in Vedic astrology is very auspicious. Actually, the full moon is too much. Let's get a few days right before, and it's perfect. If you have a bright moon and it is being aspected by Venus or Jupiter and no malefics tied up, this will be the best day. Don't forget, though, you need the ascendant fortified by benefics as well. So let's say Venus in the 1st, it's aspecting the moon. And the next thing I look at are the nakshatras. There are 27 nakshatras, and the nakshatras that are ruled by benefics are going to be the best ones pretty much for marriage, except for, always exceptions to the rule. You just have to know these things. To get married when the moon is in Purva Falguni, which is ruled by Venus, is too much. It is actually one of the marriage mansions, and they say to avoid that nakshatra for marriage. But the next one, Uttara Falguni, is one of the best ones for marriage. It's not this intensity over the top. Where maybe there's more than one marriage if you get married during the moon being in Purva Falguni. But look for Uttara Falguni or any of the positive nakshatras that are ruled by Jupiter or Venus. You don't necessarily want to get married in a nakshatra that's ruled by Mars, such as Mrigashira, such as particularly, definitely avoid Dhanishta. It is bad for marriage. So there are rules of thumb which nakshatras are better or worse for marriage. You can look that up. They're pretty consistent throughout all the texts. But instead of going over all of the 27, choose a good one. That's important. Plus the lunar phase of the Tithi. And what I want to say is when you're coming to the bright moon, the Tithis are really strong. So that's my rule of thumb. You're going to want to look for a day where the nakshatra is good for marriage, where the Tithi is a good strong one. But let me just say this, the Tithi is way down on the totem pole. Nakshatra is more powerful and important. But the most important thing of all, make sure the moon is aspected by benefics. And the benefics are mainly Jupiter and Venus, and not by malefics, which would be Mars, Saturn, or Rahu or Ketu. So that's going to be the rule of thumb and the most important thing that I look for. Lastly, what sign Venus is in? Well, I don't tell people to usually get married when Venus is in Virgo. Venus is the planet that rules relationships and love. And if it's in Virgo, it's debilitated. The best best times would be when Venus is in Libra. And generally, you're going to find that's going to be in the fall in the Northern Hemisphere. So basically around, usually, Venus, because it never gets that far from the sun, it will usually be around possibly September, October, November. It goes from Virgo to Libra, so avoid the Virgo, Venus being in Virgo. Try to get Venus in Libra. Or it can be in Taurus, or it can be in Pisces. So the springtime would be the Taurus and the Pisces time period. So look for where Venus is. And last but not least, what day of the week it is. Because you realize in India, they believe there's so much divorce in the West because we get married on a Saturday. Saturday's ruled by Saturn. You want to get married on a day such as Friday. Friday's ruled by Venus, love, marriage. But there's other days that are well and good, and Mercury, which Wednesday, be okay, and maybe the Moon's Day, Monday. But most people don't want to get married during the middle of the week, but this is my last requirement. So in other words, all the other things are more important. If it happens to fall on a day such as Saturday, it's not going to break it. So many people, for family reasons, want to get married on Saturday. And many people plan a day that they legally get married and then have their wedding for the celebration for the public. So all of this is important. Remember, you are setting up the birth chart. In other words, it's like an entity, and that is your marriage. So this chart lives on. And even as the transits and the dashas evolve from this birth chart, that will be the evolvement of the marriage. So everything goes through cycles, ups and downs, and good times and bad times, but you can be able to see it by planning this wedding chart, which is the birth chart for your relationship with your spouse. Very, very important. And we have free will to choose it. So use this opportunity to plan the best chart that will give you the best life with your spouse. So with that, I'd like to close. If you would like more information on me, you can go to my website, which is galacticcenter.org. Don't forget to check out my university if you're interested in learning Vedic astrology, which is University of Vedic Astrology.com. Thank you.